Hello and welcome to the Haywire's video blog for Tuesday, June 14th, 2011. In episode 4 of the BBC's nature documentary series Human Planet, there's a segment that depicts the Awa tribe of the eastern Amazon in present-day Brazil, where the women breastfeed monkeys who are orphaned from the tribe hunting the parents of those monkeys. The orphaned monkeys are raised alongside the children of the tribe, and they're actually brought into the social fabric of the day-to-day activities of the tribe. One of the women who is shown breastfeeding a monkey explains that this attachment goes very deep. There really isn't another word for it besides love. Well, this might seem like a really jarring example of a paradox. It really isn't that much of an extension from relationships with animals throughout, across the board. It's universal throughout our history that we've been capable of developing bonds with animals, but puzzlingly, often with animals that we're about to consume. Now, there are many cases of practices throughout the world where there is a ritualistic kind of expression of appreciation, or for lack of a better word, spiritual gratitude for wildlife that we consume to eat. But overall, this raises the question of empathy and what it is, what it means. From a survival perspective, why is it that we would have developed a capacity and actually a tendency to become attached to animals that it would be in our best interest to just be able to kill and eat without any sort of remorse whatsoever? It's a puzzling question. Why does empathy exist within our biology and within the biology of other organisms, animals on the earth? What is empathy in terms of its universal? What is it made of? What chemical substance does it consist of in terms of from a universal perspective? And I mean the actual universe. When you see the Earth floating there and the sun and the stars, on one of those dots in the sky, this one, there is life, and that life has developed an ability to feel the emotions of other organisms around it. The fact that I can get attached to this creature, and in spite of the fact that I know that if I were 6 inches tall, she would probably dismember me, decapitate me, rip my guts out of my body, and play with my mutilated corpse after eating flesh off my bones. And the fact that she can also get attached and, in essence, love me back, in spite of the fact that she would eat me if I were smaller, really raises questions. There are theories about empathy developing because we are social animals and we form social groups, and if we're able to really understand what other members of our group are going through, and support and be there for them and not harm them, it increases everyone's survival if the group can continue forward. But that doesn't really take into account the complexity of how these two conflicting drives intermingle in our perception. This is a question that will come up quite a bit. It has profound implications for where we are in our history as a species at this moment. At least I would argue that it does. We have demonstrated a marked tendency to take into account members of our immediate group, i.e. family, tribe or town or neighborhood or extended family, or people that root for the same sports team. Yet we are showing a real failure to do so on a grander scale, on a bigger scale. And yet at the same time, our focus, almost like a camera lens with our empathy, kind of shrinks and expands depending. I mean, if you meet someone in a foreign country from your same town, you're more likely to be warm and receptive to them versus if you saw them on the street. I mean, there's that line from the movie The English Patient where Willem Dafoe's character says, "I never understood that, why people are happy to see each other from the same town, when if you saw that person in the street, you'd walk past them and not even give them a second thought." But that right there indicates that there's an aperture, like a camera lens, in our heart, I guess you'd call it, in our empathic mechanism that can take more in and also keep things out. You know, I brought up rooting for the same sports team. If you're at a sporting event and you're rooting for, and you've gone to the away city, you're not in the town of the team you're rooting for, and there are other people from your area who are fellow fans of the team you went to root for, you feel united with them against the people in the host city who are all against you. If you're sitting next to those same people in the town you're all from, and you know, one of those people buys the last available hot dog, a chili dog or something, things could get really ugly. Again, shrinking and expanding depending on the circumstance. You know, immigrants who travel from one country to another who may have like detested each other or been in competition or couldn't stand each other or, you know, whatever, had unpleasant histories, would probably tend to stick together and help each other out more in a new situation where they're under pressure to cooperate because they don't have much other support. So that goat that, you know, say you grew up on a farm somewhere, and you know, my mom had a friend who told me this story, that he got very attached to a billy goat and he was crushed and never forgave his parents for slaughtering that goat. The fact that that person might have grown up to be a farmer himself to slaughter goats, but yet still have somewhere in his self a chamber in his memory where he could still access love for a goat. This is such a fascinating principle of being that we don't even really stop to think about it as much as we could, and perhaps because it's daunting to think of it because it has no real resolution. The paradox is just going to be what it is, regardless of the choices we make. I mean, you can be a Buddhist who's a vegetarian. You can be a Jainist who you know, in India who wear filters over their mouths because they don't want to hurt any bugs or organisms. I mean, that's sort of taking the empathy to an extreme. Or you can just sort of turn it on and off. But what does that mean for us? What are some of the sort of collateral expenses from a biological point of view of turning that on and off? How precise is that mechanism? You know, what is the residue of feeling able to love and be affected by things, and yet being able to shut that out? I don't necessarily know whether that's a clean, you know, whether the engine that drives that is a clean, perfectly optimal system. I think there's rust in that system, and there's a back and forth, imperfect dialogue and tension and strange relationship between those two sides of ourselves. Something I can't wait to explore more with some guests and hear from you about. Hope to hear from you at Saby, S-A-B-Y, at thehaywire.com. Thanks again. More blog videos posted every weekday, along with video features and video interviews. I love you, yeah, yeah, now and forever. Yep, see, there we go.